Domo domo, what is up, Positive Juju crew? Welcome back to this week's anime versus manga Jujutsu Kaisen comparison. I am your host, Steady, always at the ready, official Jujutsu Kaisen translator. So what a week it has been for the anime. If there was ever a time for me to get my Nanami cosplay together, today is the day. I even got the blade here. It's blunt like it should be. Got a couple of tricks in this guy, but it is indeed, it's got the weight and everything. It's all wrapped up and it's got the marks on it and all that. Maybe I'll do a video down the line explaining what the deal is, but I'm gonna put that right there. And I know the wig is not quite Nanami, but it's good enough, right? And it's even got the 7-3. The whole the way that they call this hairstyle in Japan is shichisan. It's basically a 7-3 ratio, so it's very intentional. Fun fact, it's very much in line with Nanami's theme. His name itself is Nana. It's not spelled with a 7 and 3, although there is a 7. The Mi is ocean, so 7 oceans actually. So very, very cool last name. But Nanami can also be read as 7-3. So his ratio technique and his hairstyle, and so it's a lot of 7-3 ratios going on with him. But we are here for another amazing episode of the Jujutsu Kaisen anime. And I should also say that let me take a quick moment here to say that if you do follow the manga, the English volume 7 is out now. So and if you're the kind of person that does buy on Amazon, I would ask you to consider using the link in the description. It does actually help me out a little bit as well. A small portion of the purchase goes to me. So if you're the kind of person that buys on Amazon regularly anyways, I say thank you very much. Maybe you can consider buying through the link that I have in the description. But anyways, we've got chapters 19, 20, and about 3/4 of chapter 21 covered in episode 9 here. So a substantial portion, 2 3/4 chapters worth. And what an action-packed and intrigue-packed episode it was. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Hope you got something to drink or maybe a little bit of a snack at the ready. I'm joined by the main cast here today. And let's do this. All right. Ryoiki Tenkai. Boom. All right. As always, thank you so much for spreading that positive juju. I'm going with maybe the positive juju crew. What do you think about that? Not bad? Let's go with it. Thank you so much for hitting the like button. And I've seen a lot of amazing comments these days. I'm trying my best to keep up with replying and all that. So I appreciate your patience, but I'm doing my best. And thank you so much for the amazing support that I've seen recently. So we start off episode 9 here with a bit of a intense scene. The bullying is never fun to watch. It's especially when it starts getting physical and a little bit excessive like this. But this is very much the same way that chapter 19 opens up as well. However, there are a couple of key differences. The order in which things are kind of represented in the chapter in the manga is a little bit different, as the manga starts out with Junpei at the theater already, kind of commenting on how the 3 guys are there talking and this and that. And then it sort of kind of flashes to this bullying scene here. Whereas in the anime, it starts out with this bullying scene, and then we see it kind of flash over to the movie theater. Also, a big difference is the way that Junpei kind of approaches the ticket box and asks this lady here for a ticket, one ticket to Mimizu Ningen 3. So Mimizu is like earthworm, and Ningen is human. So it's like earthworm person, not earthworm Jim, I guess. Does anyone know earthworm Jim out there? But this was actually a really cool addition exclusive to the anime here, because this lady actually becomes a little bit of a key role later on in the episode. So you notice how she's eating a bento here. Also, when she passes Junpei his change and the ticket, you see this little watch on the wrist. Maybe you guys know where I'm going with this. Then we get this cool little scene of Mahito walking by. So again, this is exclusive to the anime as well. So a little bit of the intrigue here. And then we move on into the theater. And again, a really cool addition that they had here in the anime was, it's almost kind of a sleight of hand move. Because, you know, Junpei is talking about the three boys and how annoying they are. And I actually missed this on my first watch through. On the right there, Mahito's already sitting and just enjoying the movie. This was a really cool little addition that they had for the anime, because in the manga, Mahito didn't appear in this scene, so to speak, until he actually approached the boys. But in the anime, not only did we see Mahito kind of walk by the ticket booth, we also see him creepily just kind of sitting there. So it's not only Junpei and the three boys, although we do get that kind of scene of Mahito kind of appearing, and it's a little bit creepy later on. But we do flash to this kind of bullying scene again, and as much as I don't want to talk about it, it is important to kind of point out a big addition that they had here, is that we see this teacher walking by, and he actually catches a glimpse of the bullying happening, but chooses to ignore it. This isn't a spoiler or anything, but in the manga later on, we do, you know, we approach the teacher, and it kind of concludes by the teacher kind of admitting how he was aware of the situation. But we didn't get this little scene of him actually seeing the bullying going on at the actual scene in the manga. So this was a pretty interesting addition, and gives the situation a little bit more kind of, you know, seeing Junpei getting bullied and the teacher not doing anything about it. It's pretty hard to watch. Then we move back to the movie theater, and a cool little fun fact here is that this doctor, while Junpei is kind of talking about how annoying the boys are and stuff, he's actually the doctor here on the movie. Is you can catch a glimpse of him talking about like the soul and the body and the relationship and stuff like that. So it's a little kind of a fourth wall breaking moment. Obviously the connection with Mahito, and maybe why Mahito is watching the movie in the first place. He actually went to go watch the movie, and then the three kids were annoying him, so he decided to do his thing. But this scene, I love how they didn't hold back. Again, we see this little creepy scene of Mahito transforming, and I love the sounds, that kind of like, I don't know how to do it. That sounded ridiculous, but just the way that he's kind of, you know, right behind them and like, hey guys, why don't we mind our manners, okay? And then we see Junpei running out of the theater here, and another really cool little detail. You see this kind of like custodian's trolley here on the side, and then we see this shirt mysteriously on the ground, and it's almost kind of like a you blink and you miss it kind of moment. But just the nature of me kind of going scene by scene and looking at things carefully, I didn't notice this on the first time through either, but this actually becomes a very important little piece of extra information here as well. But then we move on to Junpei actually approaching Mahito, and I love the way that this alleyway is sort of colored with this kind of creepy green in this dark alley, and it really gives it a certain ambiance and a little bit of an ominous tone as well. Then again, this bullying scene, and we see it's just terrible. I don't want to dwell on this too much, but it very much kind of similar in the way that Junpei, you know, we earlier talking about how this button, if he were to able to press a button to kill the people that don't like him, he wouldn't hesitate. So this kind of creepy, the way that the face is kind of morph and stuff. Anyways. And then Junpei kind of approaching Mahito saying, am I able to do something like that as well? Which becomes a little bit of a plot thread later on in the series, and we won't go into too deep here as to avoid spoilers. But then this is where we get our little intro, of course, our opening Kaikai Kitan by Eve. As you know, a lot of us suspected, we just keep on adding more and more people. And then this is where we see Todo and Nanami now added to this little picnic here, and Mai is not there, so she's upset. But someone did point out on Twitter that this is actually a recreation of a Monet painting, I believe. I forget the name of it right now, but it's right here if you wanna check it out for yourself. So I kind of had my suspicions too, because a lot of, you know, anytime you see openings and stuff, a lot of it is made very, very purposeful, right? Even a lot of the locations are of actual locations in Shibuya and stuff too, or around Tokyo anyways. So it was kind of had a inkling that this perhaps was inspired by something, but good on the person who recognized the painting that it's actually based on. So very, very cool addition. But then we move back into the episode, and one big difference here is that they decided to go with this heavy rain. In the manga, it's not raining. Later on in the episode, we see Nanami and Yuji kind of holding umbrellas and stuff as they head to the roof. None of that is there, so they decided to add this kind of rain, and obviously it works really well. Kind of gives a creepy vibe to everything that's going on, and even in the fight, it kind of adds a little bit more with the puddles and Nanami and Yuji running through the puddles and stuff. So then we move inside the theater. We see the two kind of staff members. Well, I think they're actually more like investigators. They should be. But interesting to see this kind of staff room here. So it is similar to the way that it was in the manga, and where these two are kind of talking to each other, and the bald guy is kind of like, hey, don't ask questions. There are just some things in this world where you don't ask questions about. So kind of a cool moment there, because it gives a little bit of intrigue as well. Because a big question when it comes to Jujutsu Kaisen is, how are these Jujutsu sorcerers able to do what they do? You know, it's a big crime scene, and then it's almost kind of this unspoken rule that Nanami and Yuji are allowed to just go in there and do their thing first. So hopefully that is expanded on in the manga later on, because I know that is a big question that a lot of manga readers do have and are kind of hoping for, is kind of a little bit of a expansion, a little bit of a explanation about the way that things kind of work, the logistics, so to speak. Then we move into the theater here, and of course a grotesque scene. And I mean, it's kind of a minor difference, but a difference nonetheless. We see Nanami and Yuji still inside the theater, kind of at the seats. We don't really get that in the manga. They're already out in the hallway as they're having this whole conversation about the residuals and things like that. So it's an interesting little tidbit, and of course you like the banter between Yuji and Nanami here. You know, Nanami, you get a very good idea of what his character is all about, and Nanami, it's I gotta say, I was a little bit hesitant on Tsuda Kenjiro, although I absolutely love Tsuda Kenjiro, don't get me wrong. I was a little bit hesitant about his fit for Nanami as a voice actor, but I'm certainly warming up to it, and I've liked what I heard so far. So I will admit I was wrong on that, and Tsuda Kenjiro is doing an amazing job for sure. So as we see Nanami and Yuji kind of following the trail, we do move on to Gojo and Yuji at the school, and of course at this point, as manga readers, we're very familiar with who Nanami is, but in the anime, of course, this is the first time we've met this mysterious guy with the crazy glasses and the suit and the hair and the weird tie and the blade and all that. So we get a little bit of an explanation here, and it's interesting. This is why I keep on saying this with the anime. Something that they do really well is kind of give us an idea of the mysteries of this location of Jujutsu High, because I remember this scene vividly in the manga, but I didn't think twice about the locale. They're in this like kind of crazy cave thing with these huge gates, and you're like, where the heck is this place? You assume that it's at Jujutsu High, but in the anime they do a really great job. Obviously, the advantages of having color and kind of B-roll and showing different scenes and things like that and locations, but it's definitely worth mentioning. And then we get the classic Gojo around. He's got his arm around Nanami, and Nanami's just like, dude, please, personal space. And Yuji does make the little comment about how everyone seems to have their eyes covered, and it's an interesting point that I think they don't explicitly, I should say, mention it in the manga itself, but in a little bonus page, Akutami Sensei is talking about how the reason why Nanami wears these glasses is because to avoid direct eye contact with curses. So, they're walking around and theoretically there's curses everywhere. A lot of them just are very not threatening and pose a danger. So a lot of them, it's kind of assumed that are like kind of left to be almost, like the fly head that Yuji is holding at the end of the episode. But it's Akutami Sensei is saying that curses feel very agitated when things make eye contact with them. So you have normal people just walking by, you can't see the curses, so eye contact isn't made. But a Jujutsu sorcerer who is able to see a curse and make eye contact with them, it can cause a little bit of a commotion. So that's why Nanami wears his glasses. Gojo wears the blindfold for a different reason, but that's neither here nor there. Then I like Nanami's, very proper, like, hey, before we get into it, let's do our little nice to meet you self-introduction. And in the manga, they didn't have Nanami actually bowing to Yuji, which was an interesting little detail that they added for the anime here. Then, of course, just the comedic gold here. A huge difference, huge addition that they had for an anime, because in the manga, the tone was very much kind of like, oh, what is this guy? Kind of like how Gojo and Yuji are talking in the background here, as Nanami is just kind of monologuing about the reasons why everything is crap and this and that. But they make him kind of funny here, and they make a comedic bit out of it, which I was pleasantly surprised about, as the multiple times of him saying the face here, it's just way too funny. But yeah, it's not too much more to be said in this scene. Just kind of the banter is really interesting, and of course we get kind of a background on Nanami and what he's sort of about. The fact that he was once he attended Jujutsu High, but then he decided to just become kind of a civilian and work as a it's assumed that he worked finances and like he was a stockbroker almost, based on the information that we have. Yeah, then he kind of came back to Jujutsu High, which I think they explain later on the reason why, so I'm not going to go into it here. But then we have this cool little bonus here of Nanami and Yuji walking up the stairs towards the roof, and we see the rain kind of outside and just the dark tone. But then it looks like I see a little volleyball player here. I guess it's supposed to be a nod to Haikyuu, and more specifically, the color scheme obviously suggests that it's Aoba Josai and I guess Oikawa. So again, we've seen this previously in Jujutsu Kaisen of when Yuji was upset that he didn't have any powers. He was talking about the Bankai and the Rasengan and the Reigan and all that. So Jujutsu Kaisen is having a lot of these kind of little fourth wall breaking moments, and I'm all here for it. And I think the timing was supposed to be really good too, because I don't keep up with the Haikyuu anime like live, but I think Oikawa was supposed to have kind of a a little tease this week or something. So cool timing. But then they walk outside, and this is what I was talking about, is that this whole thing with Nanami and Yuji having umbrellas and this and that it's exclusive to the anime. In the manga, they just make it look like it's, I don't know if it's necessarily sunny or whatever, but they're certainly not holding umbrellas and this whole kind of rainy tone going on. But then I like how the curse kind of approaches there, and this is why I mentioned the ticket booth lady, because all evidence suggests that this is her. We see the watch on the wrist, as well as this curse mentions something about a bento. So a bento, for those of you that don't know, is like a box lunch. It's, well, not just lunch. It's box lunch. It's a packed lunch, packed food. A packed meal. There you go. Before I start getting people correcting me on my Japanese. But yeah, it's creepy the way that the eyes are kind of glowing here. And of course we see the hair to suggest too. In the manga, this is what I'm saying, is in the manga, we didn't get that whole scene with the ticket booth lady. So we weren't able to put one and one together. So in the manga, you just kind of later find out that this was probably a human, but you never really are given any leads as to who it was. And then we get a look at this guy peeking out of the corner, and they're mentioning something about cleaning supplies, which would link up with the custodian in that hallway that I was talking about earlier. So a little bit of intrigue and a very cool detail that they had for the anime. I'm almost kind of upset that they didn't have that in the manga, but of course this is the kind of advantage that the anime has sometimes, where you can add some things or make some reconsiderations, make some little tweaks here and there, or if you have a good idea, you're like, oh, we'll add that in the anime. But then I like Yuji, getting ready as Nanami's monologuing, and Yuji's just like, oh god, just let me do my thing here. But then Nanami, of course, with the blade. And then so I like the little choreography that they have here. And oh man, Nanami's hair is, I'm jealous. It's so swaying and so lush. Of course, with the rain too, I guess it kind of plays to that effect. Then we see Nanami kind of explaining his ability and the whole idea of the 7-3 ratio, the ratio technique as we call it. Very cool ability. And I like the way that they kind of illustrate it here, very much the same way as in the manga, with kind of these different animals and stuff. Which I don't know why you would explain it with animals, but whatever. No animals were hurt in the making of this video. Then a little kind of a bonus funny moment here where we see Yuji getting smacked into the little home run thing. And this is also another thing too. It's that when I was reading the manga, or kind of I think back on it now, I guess they were at like batting cages on top of the roof. Never thought twice about it. Although if you're getting really specific here, the net would be a lot more fine, because those baseballs are going right through those holes into the street. But that's whatever. Then we see Nanami kind of talking about how this is one big thing that I wanted to talk about, is because in Jujutsu Kaisen, a big part of the battle system is the idea of having these curse techniques, right? And how it's oftentimes kind of a game of rock, paper, scissors as well, where a curse technique that seemingly kind of weak can be extremely powerful under the right circumstances. And furthermore, we have Nanami explaining how divulging one's curse technique can actually lead to the opponent kind of assuming things about the curse technique, and kind of a little bit of a trickery there as well. Just the way that we see displayed here, whereas we see this awesome effect of the kind of cursed energy. I really like the color, and I like the, how do you explain it? Kind of the really thick lines, very similar to what we've seen in Akutami Sensei's art style. So it's not quite for the character designs, but at least the cursed energy here, we see this kind of thick, almost brush painting, kind of black lines. And the way that it's kind of flat almost, if that makes any sense. But we see Nanami here talking about how, you're explaining this idea of the 7:3 ratio technique, and then you're saying, okay, and even it was displayed like the whole body, but the advantage here, the trick that he creates here, is that the curse assumes that it's only the whole body, but we see right after this how Nanami says that he can actually piece it up into smaller bits too, that the leg, he can create a ratio there as well. Theoretically with just the head he can create a ratio as well. So very cool. This is a concept that we see multiple times in the manga during a lot of the battles, where the opponent kind of assumes certain things and then the wielder uses that to their advantage. So very cool idea, very inspired, as you can imagine. Akutami Sensei, a big fan of Togashi Sensei and Hunter x Hunter. Then we get this cool effect of the whoosh, the 7-3, and the blood splatter. I really love this. Just kind of short and sweet, very effective. And then the Nanami as he's... let me see if I can recreate this real quick. The kind of deal. I'm so cool. And of course Nanami just styling. He doesn't even bother to take off his jacket, although he does loosen up his tie a little bit. But super badass, of course. I love the effect that they have going on. If you really kind of see frame by frame, you see all the little details that the extra mile that they go to kind of create something very special. But it's interesting, little small change that they have here in an addition, I should say, is that Nanami is telling Yuji, hey, behind you. In the manga, I don't think he ever said that. It's just Yuji's just kind of punched away. And then Nanami comments about, hey, I don't know, you're not really paying attention, huh? And then Yuji, this banter, of course, is so great. They went all out on this this divergent fist here. Because, I mean, it was cool in the manga, but damn. Just obviously the way that this lighting is, and the way that the lines are really kind of thick, and the contrast and the color scheme here, and just the intense look on Yuji's face, and oh my god. As we kind of have this quick moment to flash sideways, where we see Gojo in this, god, looking sultry again. Of course, Gojo is just too sexy for like I think they even exaggerated this collar a little bit in the anime, if I'm not mistaken. Like in the manga, yeah, it's kind of a big collar and stuff, but geez, here, like, you can see his collarbone, and oh my gosh, just I can't look at it anymore unless I'm gonna, my heart. I'm just jealous. I'm just jealous is all. But then we see how it's explained with kind of how the cursed energy can't keep up with the physical speed of Yuji. So it creates this weird double impact kind of effect. But whoa, let's take a look at some of these scenes kind of a little bit in more detail here. It's intense, just the way that they have the curse energy, and just the sound that's going on in the background, and the kind of background music that's kind of getting things pumped up. Whoa, just the whoosh. It's like, I don't know how to explain it, but you know what I'm talking about. It's damn, just, I mean, look at these panels here. Just whoa, I mean, yeah, it's just absolutely breathtaking. Then we get the Kitten divergent fist kind of in this cool calligraphy, I should say, and Yuji, oh my god, that's so cool. And then the Gojo talking about how this will be a big weapon for Yuji, kind of a happy mistake. It's not really something that's intended by Yuji, but it just kind of happens out of his bad habits, so to speak, or bad habits, or kind of abnormal habits of him just being too fast and not having kind of control over manipulating cursed energy, resulted in this thing called Divergent Fist. But then we get kind of a sad scene here. The curse kind of crying and stuff too, and they don't really, I didn't really remember this as much in the manga, but they really brought attention to kind of the consequence here, because as we find out, it was a human not too long ago. So it kind of tugs at your heart, like, oh my gosh, kind of it's a little sad. But we get this intense look by Yuji, and I like the way that they represented the hair with the rain and all that. So but yeah, we get this kind of revelation that Nanami is able to take a photo, and it kind of dawns on Yuji as well, as we get this concerned look on his face. Really well done. You can see the emotion. Obviously, if it's a curse, it's not meant to show up in a photo. So Nanami kind of sees the arm and says it can't be, kind of deal. Then we see them talking to Shoko here, and it is indeed a human, or was a human, as Shoko says, transfigured humans, as we call it. Yeah, so it's obviously, without going into too much detail, it's related to Mahito. As we saw in the movie theater, he can use it to just flat out kill someone, or he can use it to create these transfigured humans, as we call it. And again, we get this intense look on Yuji's face after he's told, don't worry about it too much. But for him, this idea of, again, this kind of theme of death and proper death versus unnatural deaths is very important to him, and something that motivates him, not only for other people, but for himself as well. This idea of being able to be strong enough to choose his own path, right? And his own way that he goes out. Then we get this cool little detail here of Nanami's jacket kind of drying off on the coat hanger there. And it's interesting. I mean, it doesn't really change anything in the story per se, but it's cool, because a cool little attention to detail, the way that, yeah, if it was raining, he would be wet, the way that he kind of passes Yuji a towel, the way that he's got a jacket kind of hanging and drying off. This is all new for the anime. None of this was happening in the manga. In fact, I think in the manga, when they're in this room talking, Nanami's still got like his jacket on, and they're just kind of chilling and talking. So an interesting point that they had here with the whole rain going on. As we kind of move on back to Mahito and Junpei, and we even see this river kind of flooding, almost not flooding really, but moving really quick with the heavy rain. We get this scene in the manga as well of this kind of river here, or canal, or whatever you want to call it. But in the manga, they make it seem like it's just kind of a peaceful looking river. So I like the fact that I'm assuming that they added this whole rain thing just kind of add to the ominous mood, so to speak, right? We kind of move into the sewer here, and then we see Mahito kind of in his what do you call it? Hammock. There you go. Jeez, I almost forgot. Hammock. In the manga, he was like way up higher, but it's whatever. But there, they keep on talking about this idea of where ghost stories come from, and the idea of how they're rooted. They're given power by the idea of humans having fear towards these different things. And it's very much what Jujutsu Kaisen is all about. These curses like Jogo and Hanami, Mahito are born from humans' negative emotion towards things like natural disasters, or just fear of the unknown, of the ocean, of mountains and things like that. And of course, just general negative human emotion is what Mahito is all about. But it's a little more intense here, the way that Mahito is talking to Junpei. He's like up in his face and talking to him, and in the manga it wasn't as intense. But I definitely like the interpretation here in the anime. Kind of gives it a little bit more of a creepy vibe, and like, oh, this guy's trouble, right? He even is kind of like, you're gonna be okay, child, kind of deal. As we hear the creepy voices down the sewer. But then we move back over to Nanami and Yuji, as well as Ijichi-san now. But cool little detail here you might have missed. On the right, we see the little sign for the building. Multiple signs, but one of them says Shue Koko. So Shue Koko Bunshi, I mean, it's kind of like a kind of like a study hall for this high school known as Shueisha, which is obviously a nod to Shueisha, which is the company that makes Shonen Jump and all that. So kind of a cool little detail. And then this is all very much the same as with the manga, kind of them talking about how they've maybe got a general idea of where Mahito is, or this curse is. They don't know that it's this thing called Mahito. But Nanami leading Yuji to believe that they only have a rough idea, where Nanami obviously knows exactly where it is. He doesn't really want to get Yuji involved, right? But then I like Yujichi and Yuji kind of with the, yeah, we got it, as they're sent on this mission to find this kid, Junpei Yoshino, who was at the scene of the crime, investigate a little bit more, because obviously Mahito doesn't show up on the cameras, right? So they haven't made contact with Mahito necessarily yet, although they know that there is someone very highly intelligent, a curse, most likely special grade, kind of pulling the strings. And then we see Yujichi and Yuji kind of in the car here as they're approaching Junpei, and then our final scene is of Yuji holding the fly heads, which is, I think, about 15 pages into chapter 21. And then in the next page, we see what their kind of plan is with the little flyhead curses here. But yeah, that's where we end, and then we get our awesome, of course, Lost in Paradise ending. Then we get this this super funny bonus Juju sample again. And of course, I love the dynamic between Gojo and Nanami, and just how no BS Nanami is. He's like but it's funny, and someone pointed out the kind of cool effect that the art style that they have with these Juju samples. It almost looks like kind of watercolor paintings, and it's funny. It's supposed to give kind of a lighter tone to these little Juju samples, right? And then of course I'm not going to show the contents of this letter, just in case for whatever damn reason YouTube decides to pinpoint it, but yeah, the rest. And then this face that we get from Nanami, kind of yeah, too funny. But then we get next week's kind of preview, and obviously we see this kind of weird scene of Gojo kind of prancing around, and this is actually meant to be, this scene, this frame specifically, is meant to be something very intense. It's a commentary by Nanami saying how Gojo has this almost like aloof nature to him, that he's so strong that he has this kind of like aloofness to him, when comparing Gojo to Mahito, actually. But yeah, and then next week, episode 10 is called Mui Tenpen, which is the word for idol transfiguration, which is the curse technique that Mahito uses to kind of transfigure these humans and stuff. So yeah, next week we should get some Nanami versus Mahito action. Should be good. I think we're going to see Nanami throw down, so I might have to bust out this cosplay for next week too. But yeah, hey, thank you so much. I mean, it's I've been seeing, of course, the anime effect has had a positive effect for my channel as well, and seeing a lot of new faces. But something that I'm really happy is about the engagement. A lot of you guys feel comfortable about commenting on my videos, and I really do appreciate that. Obviously, whenever someone starts a YouTube channel, I mean, you'd be lying if you said that you wouldn't hope for people to be engaged, and it helps the algorithms and all that. But it really just kind of goes to show how passionate Jujutsu Kaisen fans are about the series, and very intelligent. I will say that honestly, like, I'm not just saying it just to make you guys feel happy, but and I really do appreciate the how do you say, the professionalism. I really appreciate you guys being cordial and being professional when making your comments, and not just throwing shade around and things like that. So yeah, just thank you so much for that positive juju, obviously helping me out by supporting with likes and comments and all that. Just gotta say thank you, as a helicopter decides to create noise for me in the background. Hopefully you guys can't hear that too much. But yeah, hey, cheers to you. You know how we do. Mata yoroshiku.